Hello everyone, I once again welcome you all to my YouTube channel English Banisa. So in this video we are going to discuss a poem The Felling of the Banyan Tree written by Dilip Chitre, which you have in your degree semester 2. So before moving further, let us know about the author, that is Dilip Chitre. So students, Dilip Chitre was a respected and versatile artist and a filmmaker. And also he was a teacher, a painter and a magazine columnist. He is known as one of the India's most popular modern poets and writes in both English as well as in Marathi. The Felling of the Banyan Tree is extracted from his Traveling in a Cage, his first book of poems. Now let us see about the poem The Felling of the Banyan Tree. So this Felling of the Banyan Tree, it is an autobiographical poem being Dilip Chitre's explanation of time when he was uprooted from Baroda to the city of Bombay. Modern day we call it as Mumbai. So this banyan tree is a metaphor for his life, for the family's upheaval. So as we have discussed, this book, Felling of the Banyan Tree, the poem, was first published in his book Traveling in a Cage in 1980. So as we have discussed, this is an autobiographical poem. So this focuses on a particular time in a family's history of poets when a drastic decision has to be made by the father. This decision involves the demolition, means destroying of houses on a hill, and the cutting down of a huge tree, that is banyan tree, which has stood for centuries in the same point. And the man responsible for the move is none other than the father. The move of there to Baroda to Mumbai, as well as the cutting of the banyan tree. So, in this whole poem, the poets talk about the compassion and love for the trees and nature. He said about trees being cut down from his house and compares it with the murder of humans. So, now, students, let us read the poem, which has three stanzas in it. So, let's begin the poem with first stanza. The first line is, My father told the tenants to leave. Now here student, the tenants are nothing but they are the person who use the lands and in return they give some amount. So here the poet says that his father asked all the tenants to leave their house so that they could proceed with its demolition. Now let us read the second line. Who live in the house surrounding our house on the hill. Now the tenants who were living in their houses which were surrounded by the hill, one by one, the structure was demolished. Only our own house remained and the trees. So here, students, in these two lines, the poet is saying that all the houses except for the one in which the poet's family resided was left, and some trees also. So one after the other, all the houses were demolished, means destroyed. Only poet house was left. Now let us read this line. Trees are sacred, my grandmother used to say. Now, here, students, the meaning of this sacred is nothing but something which is worthy of respect or dedication. Now, felling them is a crime, but he massacred them all. Now, the poet is saying here that his grandmother used to say that the tree, the banyan tree, is sacred. That is, a banyan tree considered holy by his grandmother were demolished. Now, here the meaning of massacre is nothing but the excessive killing of many things. Usually, it's used with the animals and humans. So, here the poet did not care uh, about his mother's religious sentiments, and all the trees were demolished. Now, here the poet is describing how many trees were there except the banyan tree. There was the shioga, the odumber, and the neem were all cut down. But the huge banyan tree stood like a problem, whose roots lay deeper than all our lives. So, students, here from this line, the poet is saying that the trees were cut down, including several medicinal and sacred ones. However, the cutting of the enormous banyan tree that was so tall and had deep roots was was a big problem for the poet's father. My father ordered it to be removed. Still, the banyan tree was huge. The father gave an order to cut the banyan tree. Now, let us read the second stanza. The first line is: the banyan tree was 3 times as tall as our house. So, students, here the poet is saying that the tree was thrice the size of the poet's house. Its trunk had a circumference of 50 feet. Now, here, students, circumference is nothing but the size of something as given by the distance around it, which means the boundary line of encompassing an area or object. Which means the banyan tree has a trunk which had a circumference of 50 feet. Its scraggly aerial roots fell to the ground. Now, students, the meaning of scraggly is nothing but something which has the means lacking of neatness and order. So, its root, the aerial roots of the banyan tree, were 30 feet long and it touched the ground. Now, let us read this line: from 30 feet or more. So, first they cut the branches. So, the aerial roots were coming from 30 feet or more. So what they did, they started by shredding the branches, means they started cutting the branches of the banyan tree, sawing them off for 7 days, and the heap was huge. This means that when they started to cut the branches of the banyan tree, it took them 7 days, and after cutting that, the heap was huge. Means they were a huge wood they have collected after cutting the banyan tree. So when they cut the banyan tree, which caused the insect and birds to leave the tree. So because they were destroying the tree, they were cutting the tree, so insect and birds started and began to leave the tree. They were moving. Now let us read the third stanza. And then they came to the massive trunk. Now here the meaning of massive is nothing but something which have a great mass or a great thing. Now, after cutting the branches of the huge banyan tree, they came to cut the trunk. 50 men with axes chopped and chopped. So, here, student, the poet is describing that 50 men had to constantly chop his trunk because the trunk was very massive, very huge. So, it's impossible for a man to cut that. So, it took 50 men for chopping the trunk of the banyan tree. Now, the great tree revealed its rings of 200 years. We watch in terror and fascination this slaughter. Now here terror is nothing but we are means afraid by seeing that all things, which means cutting of the banyan tree, and fascination means we are also having interest to see this all, as a raw mythology revealed to us its age. So here the poet is describing that when they were cutting the trunk of the huge banyan tree, everyone saw the tree's ring that shows its age of about 200 years. And the people, including the poet, means the poet and his family, witnessed this slaughter with fear and fascination. Now the poet is describing that after the cutting of the banyan tree, soon afterwards we left Baroda for Bombay, where there are no trees except the one. So here the poet is describing that soon after that they moved to Mumbai from Baroda, where they could not see many trees. Now here the poet is saying that there were no trees except the one which grows and seeds in one's dream, its aerial roots looking for ground to strike. So here students, the poet is saying that when he moved to Mumbai from Baroda, he always think about the banyan tree in his dream, in his subconscious mind. He used to see that the tree is coming to him and seeing towards him in anger, and the trees and the roots, aerial roots of the that banyan tree were touching the ground. So, students, this is all about the poem. Here we have three stanzas in this poem, The Felling of the Banyan Tree, which is a free verse poem of three stanzas with 25 lines in total. And there is no set rhyming scheme in this poem. So, students, in this poem, we have two themes, the central themes. The one is uprootedness and the idea of leaving a family home, and the second one is that ecosystem and their destruction, especially that of felling trees for profit in the name of progress. So, students, in this poem, the poet shows the connection between him and the banyan tree that is linked, like the speaker, how he is moving from his home that coincide with the tree being cut down. Means here the poet has taken a metaphor of tree to show poet he personified the tree and used it to depict his own household decision where they were uprooted from their home in Baroda and moved to Mumbai. So, students, this is all about the felling of the banyan tree summary. I hope it would be helpful for you. Stay tuned for next video and thanks for watching.